It's Friday, so that means it's time for some hot takes. And today, I've got a bit of a two-player extravaganza for you. My name's Chance, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be discussing 5 two-player games that I really enjoy. And we're going to just dive right in and kick things off with Mindbug. Now, we'll wait to the party on this one, but Mindbug is a card dueling game where players are going to build their hand or their deck from the same set of cards, basically. Basically, you shuffle up this deck of cards, and I think you deal out 10 cards to both players, and you get a hand of, I want to say 5, I don't remember the details exactly, but essentially when you play a card, you're going to be drawing a new card from your deck, and as you have to win by the time your deck of 10 cards or whatever is depleted. So this means that games are going to be very fast. And the cards are all very simple. Like, it doesn't have the same thing where you need to do with some other games, like maybe pay a cost to get the card out in your tableau to be able to do something. No, on your turn, your choice is to basically play a card or to activate a card that you've already played, which means that on the first round, you can't really do anything. You just have to play a card to your tableau. Next round, now you get the choice. Are you going to play another card or are you going to activate that card? And activating a card tends to mean just attacking your opponent. Both of you have 3 health, so literally you just have to hit the other person 3 times. There's no damage to keep track of. It's just, hey, if you get hit, you take a damage. So with Mindbug, they've just abstracted so much of kind of the head-to-head card dueling experience that it seemed like there wasn't going to be a whole lot of interesting decisions in this. It seems like maybe they might have stripped too much away from that card dueling experience. But they added in those Mindbug cards, and this is what makes the game. So both players are going to start with 2 Mindbug cards. And when someone else plays a card, you have the option to use your Mindbug to take control of that card they just played. Now by doing this, you're also forfeiting your turn basically. Like, you using your Mindbug is your turn, and that player now gets another turn, but you just take control of one of their creatures. And all these creatures are kind of ridiculous in their own way. Now some of them you're kind of like, you look at them playing them, you're like, that's not very good, but other ones you look at them and you're like, do I want you to have that? And then you get into the mind games of, wait, are they playing this creature because they want me to Mindbug it? Do they have a better card in their hand that I need to wait and save my Mindbug for? Do I use my Mindbugs early and just kind of hope to rush the end of this game, or do I save them towards the end when we're both running low on cards? And it really brings out this kind of interesting mind game, Mindbug, in this game. And each one of these cards, while being very simple, they all have kind of unique little abilities with them. Like, some will be sneaky, which means that if a player attacks with them, they can actually sneak past the other player's defenses if they have any cards out and hit the player directly. So that can be a great way to just do direct damage, unless the other player has a card with sneaky. Because sneaky can block sneaky, and then other cards have tough, which means that they need to take 2 hits before they get eliminated. Some cards will have frenzy, which means they get to do 2 attacks when on their turn. Now, and then there's poison, which means that maybe the card is really weak and it's basically going to die no matter what, but if it hits another creature, that creature is going to die at the end of the round because of the poison. So each one of these abilities is very simple, very easy to understand. All the cards are very easy to parse. Like, everything's just, that's one of the words I'm going to keep using this one. It just is easy. But easy does not mean lack of decisions. Like I said, that Mindbug card kind of adds in that puzzly part of it. Then the last thing I want to call out is just how much entertainment I get from this game. Like, I really enjoy the art style. I really enjoy the theme of this game. I remember having a set of cards in my hand. I just happened to get like 3 cards of this set where one was like a hamster. It was like this giant hamster like roaring over people or something. And then like one of the other cards in my hand was like this smaller thing. And in the background, you could see the art of the hamster card. And this other person in this card was another character in the Mindbug universe. And then there was like another card that was part of that scene. So it was really cool that they kind of connected some of this art and made kind of these stories in these cards. I mean, it's all still, like I said, very abstract. It's kind of like, okay, this creature has 9 power and is tough or something. And then this creature has 1 power and has poison. So overall, the art doesn't matter for the theme, but I do enjoy having those cards and seeing that art. Overall, I would say Mindbug it's a simple simple one to recommend. If you're into 2-player games, if you're into 2-player fillers, I do think that this is really good. I don't think you're gonna get the same you get out of it, like if you're a Magic the Gathering player, like you're not gonna get the same depth. You're not doing your deck construction. You're just being dealt these 10 cards and then just seeing how well you can do against your opponent. This is a entertaining, very light on strategy, but fun game to have. And hopefully I'll get to play it again tomorrow or today, we'll see. So that's Mindbug. And next up, bonus game. Okay, it's just standalone expansion from Mindbug. I've just played Mindbug Battle Fruits as well. Very similar game, basically the exact same, except the art is fruits and vegetables. I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. I think I had a carrot cleric at one point in my hand, and it was amazing. So I personally think I would recommend the Battle Fruits if you were just getting one of them, but I think both of them are amazing. They're both great, they're both fun, they're both fast, and both very easy to teach. So Battle Fruits, same category, same comments, love both Mindbugs. Okay. So now we can dive into an actual new game. I won't trick you by going, there might be another standalone expansion for Mindbug, so I could have, done it again. But, this time we're gonna go to Compile Main 1, I believe it's called. Now, Compile is based on the Arrowancy system it's a lane battler, and I actually haven't played Arrowancy. I've thought about picking it up for a very long time, but to be frank, the war theme, it doesn't really do it for me. Like, I don't really enjoy a lot of the kind of like old war style games like World War I, World War II. That doesn't really engage me in a lot of games. So, but I've heard really good things about Arrowancy, and the mechanics of it sounded really good. So I've been on the cusp of buying it so many times. Then my friend got Compile Main 1, and I was super excited to play this. Now, overall, this one is one where there's going to be 3 lanes out there that you're trying to control, and you're trying to compile them. Then you're going to, at the beginning of the round, you actually will draft the deck that you're going to build. And these decks are going to be based on like these various words like love or fire or metal or apathy or plague or something like that. So you have these various themes with these decks. And you draft 3 of those decks. And your goal is to compile those 3 decks or those 3 categories in your lane. So basically on your turn, you're going to be trying to play cards into your lane. You can always play a card face down for 2 power, but the rule is that once your card's powers in a specific lane reach 10, and cards will vary in power from, I think like 0 to 5 or 6 or something like that. But once you reach 10 on your lane, you have to compile it. And that's your goal in the game, just compile those 3 lanes. But the problem is there's ways that those lanes can kind of be shifted around. Like your opponent could potentially shift one of your lanes. And this can be detrimental because let's say you've already compiled a lane and you're building up 10 power in another lane, trying to compile that one. And then they shift that lane with the one you've already compiled, like they switch those 2. Now you have 10 power on a lane that's already compiled. Not what you're really trying to go for. You do get like a consolation prize. You can compile, put your cards in the deck. I think you get to like steal a random card from your opponent or the top card of their deck or something like that. Which is also another neat thing because those cards, they're not super useful for you because you can't actually play them face up to any of your lanes because they don't match any of your categories. That's one of the other rules. You have to play, the card has to go into its lane if it's going face up. So you're basically going to play that card face down into another lane. But there are cards that will flip those cards face up, and they can be in whatever lane when they're face down. So you flip it face up, then you can activate those abilities. So you can kind of do some neat things where you take other people's cards and actually manage to activate those abilities. I don't think that's the most common thing to happen in the game, but it is a really neat aspect of Compile. And the only complaint I really have about this is, as I was explaining this popped in my head, is the fact that for some reason, to me, this game feels a little more convoluted than it should. The rules just, they don't stick with me. I don't understand it. I've listened to another reviewer that said like, oh, the rules are so clean, like they did such a good job, like everything's very clear. There's something about this game with the rule book and the language they use that just does not sink in for me. It's weird. I'm just gonna say it. Like it seems like this should be easier, but there's some things where I'm like, wait, what's the timing of this? And then They use delete to mean trash, so they use some different terminology than you use in some other games, which it all makes sense in the computer language, like they're going for that computer theme, which I really enjoy. But there's just something about how the rulebook is laid out and worded that I really do struggle to internalize it for some reason. But that's not saying that Compile is a complicated game. I do think it's a pretty easy game. Once you get up and going and you learn the mechanics of it, it is still a pretty easy two-player game. And it's a good one. It's kind of this head-to-head. I really like the deck drafting phase, or the category drafting phase, where you're choosing the decks to go into your primary deck. I think that's really fun. And I think as you play it more, you might be able to figure out how to counter your opponent's decks or something. So then maybe they draft one, and then you're like, ooh, well, I'll take this one because you drafted that one. So as you learn the options available, I think it'll kind of grow and expand in the kind of decision space that you have available to you. So I'm excited to continue revisiting Compile Main 1, which is just it's a nice lane battler, and comes in a really cool box too. It's like a cube that has like a really stark purple stripe on it. So and then unfortunately though, the publisher has they post shop the Greater Than Games. I think they have a parent company, so we don't really know what's going to happen with the Compile series. Like Compile 2 is coming out. I guess that one has already been printed, so the expectation is that that is going to be delivered still. But I don't know what the availability is going to look like going forward, which is really unfortunate because I do think Compile is a really good game, and I'm glad I have access to it. Okay, moving on to number 3. This is going to be another lane battler, and this is called Desperate Oasis. Now, I'm gonna admit, I saw this one I was just browsing, I think Board Game Bliss, board game website in Canada, and they had this in like their sales section or something for Desperate Oasis. And the box just caught my eye. I was like, ooh, that's cool art. I like this art. This looks interesting. I went and looked it up, and I think, I wanna say Mimo Mountain. If I'm wrong, I'll post something there. But there was one of the contributors there posted a review on BGG and said it was like their best game of like a con in, I want to say 2024 or something like that, like relatively recent. And I was like, oh, you know, I don't have a lot of lane battlers, and I really like having 2-player games, especially quicker ones. And this seemed to have, well, one, like the artwork is fantastic, and then the mechanics sounded interesting. Like the gameplay sounded interesting to me from that review. So I decided to pick this one up. And there's really just not a lot of information out there, which I think is unfortunate because I had a good time with this. I can't say if I would recommend it over Compile Main 1, but overall, I do think that I'm going to be revisiting this one to explore kind of the strategy a little more. So just like Compile Main 1, lane battler, except this one, you're gonna have 5 lanes out. And then each player is gonna be playing cards to their lane or to their opponent's lane occasionally, and trying to basically have the most power at the end of the round to claim what are called the Oases, which are the different lanes. Those Oases will have different points associated with them. Some will be worth like 3 points, some will be worth like -1 point, so you don't want to win that lane. But what's cool about this, there's animals from I think 0 to 5 power, and they all have slightly different, or they all have different abilities. Not slightly different, they have very different abilities. Except for like this gazelle-looking thing. I forget the name of it, but I just love it. It says like, I don't have any abilities. My ability is just being myself and my horns or whatever. And I absolutely love that card. Favorite card in Desperate Oasis. But you're gonna have things down from like a mouse to an elephant. And like the elephant's ability is, it's just the strongest in the lane. It has 5 power or something, I forget exactly. And then the mouse though, is like it's like a 0 or a 1 power. So it doesn't have a lot of power, but it cancels any elephants in the lane because the elephant's scared of the mouse. So the elephants drop to 0 if a mouse is in the same lane as the mouse. So that's one part of the strategy. It's just trying to use these animal powers to cancel out your opponent's abilities. And then like the camels, which are the cool ones, which I think are worth 3 power each, unless you get 3 in a column or in a lane, and then you get +1 power. So it'll be worth 10 power in that lane if you manage to get all 3 of them. And the other main rule in this game is this thing called animal magnetism. So these animals, if you place let's say you have one lane has a camel, next lane has nothing, and then the next lane has another camel. Let's say you place a camel down in that middle lane. Now basically anything that is adjacent, that is a matching animal type, will move into that lane you just placed the camel. So those 2 camels that are next to it are now going into that other lane, and they're stacking up, and you just filled that lane with camels, which now activates its ability because you have 3 camels and you have +1 power. So now you have 10 power in that lane. Fantastic. And this happens with everything. This happens with, you play an elephant, the elephant's going to be attracted. Now this is a problem because the elephant is worth 5 power. Now, maybe you want to have 2 elephants in the lane, but that you might be doing a little bit of overkill. Maybe you want to keep your elephant in that other lane. So now by having 1 elephant in one lane, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to put an elephant next to it because that's going to pull my elephant out of that lane and possibly reduce my power from winning that lane. Terrible. And then the other thing is that you have the option, so I think on your turns, it's like you have an option to play a card face down in your lane, which means that basically you just play it face down and it'll get processed at the end of the round, or you can play 2 cards face up into any of your lanes, or you can play 1 card face up into your opponent's lanes. So you can take advantage of that animal magnetism. You can see that maybe, oh, they're setting up for a lot of, I don't know, gazelle things over here. So now I can drop my other gazelle thing and draw their gazelles out of that lane and now improve my odds of winning the lane on my side. So overall, just really cool ideas, really cool mechanisms. I think it's really unique. And then the very last one, the last thing I need to call out in this game is that those Oases in the center. Generally there's going to be points, but sometimes you get the orange Oasis cards, which are going to be portal Oases. Now, these ones are cool because that animal magnetism works through a portal Oasis. So if someone places a camel on their side of the portal Oasis, then you can place a camel on your side and draw that camel over. But it becomes this interesting battle where everyone's afraid to put an animal there because they're like, oh, I could lose whatever I put there. Like whatever I put there could just be drawn away from me. And then you end up with a little bit of a tug of war. Maybe someone plays a camel there, then the other player plays a camel on their side, draws that camel over, and then the other player plays a camel and takes that camel back. They're reducing the number of camels on the deck. Maybe there's no more camels. Maybe they've got all the camels. So maybe they are set on that one. Or maybe a player plays a card on the other player's side and draws those animals out of that lane because they're like, I'm done with this. Just get rid of those animals out of that lane. So yeah, overall, Desperate Oases, just so interesting, so unique. I would say the rulebook is really good, but there are some edge cases where I did have to go to BGG to look up a couple things just to make sure I was capturing those edge cases before playing. There was like some timing stuff with flipping cards at the end if you have them face down that had a little bit of confusion, but overall another pretty light lane battler with pretty simple to understand rules. And like I said, it's just cool, it's unique, it's from a small publisher, really cool art. So yeah, I'm excited to go back to Desperate Oasis. On to number 4. Number 4, this is going to be Wizards of the Grimoire. Now, I learned about this game through So Very Wrong About Games. They call it something like Pew Pew Wizard Pew Pew or something, and basically indicating like you're just slowly whittling down your other opponent with these small little shots and hits or whatever. I would say they have a very accurate description of this game. So this is another card dueling game where you're basically just trying to reduce your opponent to 0 health. You both start the round with 60 health, and then there's going to be a market of spell cards in the center of the table. I believe it's going to be 10 spell cards. Now you have a spell card deck, and then there's also a mana deck. Now, players will start the game by drafting spell cards basically until both players have 2, and then the game really starts. But those spell cards, so you're looking at those and you're just drafting those into your tableau. And then at the beginning of your turn, you get to draw a certain amount of mana, and the mana cards are interesting because they're numbered 1 to 4. But those numbers kind of matter. They matter for certain things. They don't matter in all cases though, because those spell cards in your tableau, to be able to activate them, you have to play a number of face down cards on them. So maybe a card tells you it needs 2 mana cards to cast. That doesn't mean 2 power mana, it means 2 mana cards. So basically you take 2 cards from your hand, put them face down on that spell, you cast it, you activate whatever effect it has, and yeah, you're good. And then you can keep doing that as long as you have mana in your hand and you have spells that are available. Those spells can't have any mana on them, so they have to be available to cast in front of you. And over the course of the game, you're gonna build up to, I think it's 6 spells. And there's a way you can clear spells. Basically, at the beginning of your turn, you're always just gonna draft a new spell. And this is one of those things that I really like about it, is that the fact that it eliminates that cost thing. So, you know, like Star Realms, if you played Star Realms, you have to have enough money to be able to buy cards from the market row and to be able to add that to your discard pile. With Wizard of the Grimoire, it just says, add a new spell to your tableau. Like, you just look at what's out there and you just take it, add it to your tableau. As long as you have less than 6, you get to add it to your tableau. If you have 6, then you have to have a spell without mana on it to be able to discard it to add a new one. And yeah, I like that simplification. There's not an extra resource to manage that we need to keep track of or try to build up an engine for to be able to get better and better cards. You just look out there and be like, ooh, that card's cool. Ooh, that card's really cool too. Oh, I like this card. That works with this other card. And that's really kind of the core of this game, is finding those cards and being like, ooh, that's going to work good with this one. I'm going to take that one this round. And then the other player takes the card that you're looking at, you're like, ah, that's the one I wanted. And now you're trying to figure out how to make your own spells work together. Because essentially there's a few different types of spells. It's like you have instant, you have ongoing, and you have delayed or whatever. So as long as, like an ongoing one, as long as it has mana on it, its effects are active. An instant, you just cast it, you process it, and then it's done until the mana's gone and you cast it again. And then you have the delayed ones, and these are the most interesting ones where you cast mana on it, and then essentially they don't activate until you remove a mana card. And this is where I get to the next section of this kind of puzzle of this game, is that on your turn, before you do anything, you're gonna, I think, draft a spell, and then I think you discard mana from your cards. Basically, you discard 1 mana from each of your spells that have mana on it. And some cards will cost 3 mana to cast or 4 mana to cast. So that means they're gonna slowly refresh. Some spells only cost 1, so maybe that means that spell will refresh on that turn. You just discard that, and now you're ready to cast it again. But this adds in a really cool timing element to the game, where you're trying to manage this puzzle of making sure you have available spells. I've run into the situation where I got a bunch of powerful spells. I managed to get enough mana to be able to cast a bunch of them on one turn. And I was like, oh, I do this damage, I do this damage. It's like I managed to do 12 damage in one turn, which is a pretty good turn in Wizard of the Grimoire. But then the next turn, I couldn't get the mana off any of my spells. Nothing was available. I was like, I can't do anything, so your turn. And I had to wait for my next refresh phase. So it adds in this really cool timing element to the game with managing the mana. Now, I did mention that the mana cards are numbered 1 to 4, and that does sometimes matter. Like, sometimes the cards will tell you, like, okay, like a delayed spell will say, okay, you're gonna discard the mana, the next mana on there, and whatever the value is, do that much damage or something like that. And that's where, like, you might wanna have certain mana cards in certain positions. You might want to have some 4s saved up, because the 4s are the rare ones. So you might want to have those in the right positions to be able to activate your spells to make them as powerful as you can. So it has like I said, it's just a really, really cool puzzle, managing which spells you gather, basically trying to build up kind of this interesting combo system, and everything you build is going to be unique. There's a pretty good sized deck of cards, and you get to explore those different combinations, which I really enjoy. And then just managing kind of the timing of that mana. And yeah, so really solid puzzle in Wizard of the Grimoire, and I do feel like it offers a more, let's say, consistent experience with a 2-player game than I've had in a lot of dueling games. Like, I love Radlands. Radlands is another card dueling game that I absolutely love, but I would say I love it 25% of the time. I enjoy it another 25% of the time, and then 50% of the time kind of falls flat. Maybe the game runs too long, it goes a little wonky, things get a little weird, I don't know. There's a lot of chaos in Radlands. And that means that it's kind of like a roller coaster ride with playing it. Sometimes you'll have these amazing experiences, sometimes you're gonna have these like, oh God, this is still going experiences. Wizard of the Grimoire though, it has this thing where essentially the game, it's always progressing forward. Like, things are always moving forward, but you're almost always doing damage to the other player on your turn. There's even a basic attack where you can discard a mana card at the end of your turn, just do damage equal to that mana card. So generally you can always do 1 to 4 damage at the end of your turn, no matter what. So you're always kind of ticking down that your opponent's health. That's why I think So Very Wrong About Games calls it whatever, pew pew wizards pew pew or something like that. It's like you're just slowly whittling down that other person. And this provides a much more consistent 2-player head-to-head, a much more even-keeled one. Now, I would say it doesn't have the highs that I've had with Radlands, but it's just one that I pull every time I've played it so far. And I've played it about 5 times now. So not so much of a hot take, but these quick games are easy to get in, so I get to play more rounds of them, which means I'll probably have a review out of this one pretty soon. But that consistent experience, I just appreciate it, where I just know I can go to this game and be like, this is going to be a good dueling game. Like, I'm going to pull it out, and I think we're going to have a good time. And we're going to be relatively even, although there is going to be some of that asymmetry on how well we do with building up our spell tableau. Guess what? I have a second bonus game in this episode that was not in the title, but it's also a standalone expansion. This is going to be Wizards of the Grimoire Shifting Sands, because I, of course, bought both of the games. When I bought this, I bought it when the expansion was already out, so I picked up both of them. Shifting Sands, all the same comments I had for the original Wizards of the Grimoire. Shifting Sands, I think, does focus a little more on the tactical spells, less on the direct damage spells. I mean, there's still a lot of them in there, but a lot more on kind of manipulating your mana and manipulating, the timing elements of the game. So I do think that if you like kind of those combo-tastic ones, Shifting Sands might be the one to go for, but I'm happy to have both of these in my collection right now. But that's really all I have to say for Shifting Sands. I'm really excited to play both of these more. Okay, on to our big feature film for this episode. This is going to be Dune: War for Arrakis. Now, this is the biggest 2-player game in this list. I wouldn't say the heaviest one that I've played, but definitely up there on the heavy side. This is bordering on, it's classified, a war game adjacent, miniature, some kind of thing. But this is one where one player is going to be playing as House Harkonnen, the other player is playing as House Atreides, which, if you've read Dune, those are the 2 main factions in the original Dune book. In Dune, you got Paul, who's basically been exiled to live with the Fremens, which are kind of like the tribal clans of the Arrakis spice planet. And then you have Harkonnens, who are the evil people that are trying to gather more power inside of the Empire and become more influential in the Empire and grow their house's strength or whatever. And they have a bit of an issue where they need to eliminate Paul. Like that, the Paul has become a bit of a thorn in their side. They got to get rid of him. So that's the setup for this game. Overall, the 2 players have similar victory conditions. It's basically get to 10 victory points each. Each player just has a different way of getting to those 10 victory points. Harkonnens, they have a much more straightforward path. Basically, they're going to go out and search for these sieges. Now, those sieges are kind of like these cities for the Fremen people, or the giant villages or communities for the Fremens that Paul is the leader of. And the Harkonnens are going to be going out and trying to destroy them. Problem is, those sieges, they don't know where the big ones are. So at the beginning of the game, the Atreides player puts out their siege tokens, and they're going to be random, and they have values of 1 to 3. So the Harkonnen player is going to gain victory points equal to the power of the siege that they managed to destroy. So if they destroy a 3, they just got 3 victory points. They're almost a third of the way to winning the game. But a 1/10 of the way. And they don't know which ones are which. They have ways of doing scouting and stuff to kind of reduce those odds, or to, figure out which ones they need to go for and which ones they can ignore. But they have a very kind of straightforward path. They do have some other things with like the spice gathering, and I'm going to get back to kind of thematic tie-ins in a minute here, but there are some other puzzly things going on with Harkonnens, but nowhere near as much as with the Atreides. So the Atreides faction, I do think is more interesting. I do think both of them have their own kind of pros and cons. I do like kind of the hunterish, the aggressiveness of the Harkonnens, but the Atreides are interesting because they have 3 kind of goal cards out per round. Those cards are going to give the Atreides players essentially an objective to go for. They can achieve 2 out of the 3 during a round, so they can't do all 3, but they get to choose 2 of the 3 to kind of aim for the round. I think this is kind of really cool because it gives that player direction. Like, it kind of feels like the Harkonnen player looks at the board at the beginning of the game and is like, ooh, what do I do? There are so many things to do. Whereas the Atreides player has those 3 cards out, and they're just like, I'm going to do those 2. It's like you have a much more clear path to what you're trying to achieve as the Atreides player. But you're also trying to hinder the Harkonnens. But as you're going along, like you're just like seeing those goals, and you're like, okay, I need to do this one and this one. Because your goal is not to get to necessarily 10 victory points, because you're going to have 3 trackers on this 10-point track. Your goal is to get those 3 trackers above certain thresholds. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to be given randomly one card that has your goals, and it'll tell you like be at 9 with yellow, be at 6 with red, and be at 4 with green or something. So you're trying to move those different trackers up the track at different rates. And essentially those goals you're going for, they're going to have different values. So by going for certain goals, you're going to be hinting to the Harkonnen player, like what are the things that you're prioritizing? And that can give the Harkonnen player a little bit more to play with. They have a little bit more of an idea of how they need to stop you. What do they need to do to prevent you from reaching your goals? So that adds in, so they have those hidden niches that they're trying to determine the values of, and they're trying to kind of suss out your long-term goals of the round. Now, the Atreides player can also go and destroy Harkonnen settlements, and the same thing happens. Like if they destroy a 3-power settlement for the Harkonnens, they get to go up on the track. And there are some other victory things in there that I'm going to kind of gloss over because I'm not doing full rules teach here, but this is a big game, so there's a decent amount to talk about. Last thing to talk about, because this is the part that might be a bit annoying to people, is it does use a dice action selection system. So at the beginning of the round, each player is going to roll a set of dice, and then they're going to basically put those on their action selection board. And those dice are going to determine what actions you're able to do for the round. Now, this is where some players may feel a little limited, and they may be like, well, I want to do deployment, but I don't have any deployment dice, or I want to do movement and attack, but I don't have any movement and attack dice. So I would say this, I was a little concerned about this with the kind of the strategy nature of this, but I actually really enjoyed the dice system, and it limited my options, kind of constricted the game space and constricted what was available, and made me had to think more about how do I plan out my moves to make this work for me? Because it's not like if I don't have an attack dice, there's no way to attack. There's cards I can draw into my hand that might allow me to attack. There's Bene Gesserit tokens on the Atreides side, where maybe they use that as a wild dice. They set it up before the round. So there's ways around kind of that randomness and be able to do the things that you need to do. But sometimes, yeah, you are kind of, you're feeling that constriction of the dice. And I think this is really cool because it's kind of, maybe it's kind of like saying, hey, you're not all powerful. You don't have the ability to do everything at all times. So it's kind of like simulating the reality of, let's say, the battle on this planet. Maybe, yeah, you don't have the strength to attack right now. Maybe you do need to do these other actions first. So I really actually enjoyed this dice selection system because it does narrow your options, make the games play a little quicker, and adds in kind of that tactical decision making that I really enjoy in games. Last thing I want to, or well, not the last thing. I have two more things I'm going to talk about. First is theme. The theme, I actually really enjoyed this. I recently reread the Dune books because of all the Dune board games coming out. I was like, you know what? I would need to revisit this. I didn't enjoy Dune the first time I read it, but I was like, oh, maybe I was a little too young. So I read it a second time. Absolutely loved the book this time. Now that I kind of understood it a little bit more and was a little more engaged with the book. And I would say Dune War for Arrakis does a fantastic job with the theme. It adds in elements of the book that I'm like, oh, it's amazing they threw it in there. Like, yeah, I'm not going to give anything away. I'll let you play it and figure it out. But essentially, like, the way the Fremen can work with the sandworms, and they can do sand riding out there, and then the Harkonnens with their kind of spice gatherers and the ornithopters and all their equipment that they have at their disposal, and then the alliances with the Emperor and the Sardaukar units, which are like the elite killing units of the Emperor, and then the intrigue cards. Like, I was impressed that all of these kind of tied into those story elements, like the atomics with the Atreides. Like, the atomics are a big deal in Dune. It's like you can't use atomics to kill anybody. So in the game, like, if you set off your atomics in a certain zone and there's enemy units there, you actually cause them to retreat. You actually basically push them out before the atomics detonate, because in the Dune universe, killing anyone with atomics is very frowned upon, and you as a house would be kind of just wiped out. You would be nothing to everyone. So I find that really cool about just the thematic tie-ins they got for this. So I think if you do like the Dune universe, I think that Dune War for Arrakis is probably the one that has done a thematic tie-in the best for me out of the Dune games I've played. Now, I haven't played the original, so I gotta say that I've not played the long, whatever, Alliance original one. I would be interested in trying that one out, but not generally the type of game I always seek out. So Dune War for Arrakis gets a thumbs up for me on kind of the tie-ins to the Dune universe. And I had one more thing to say, and I have totally forgotten it. No, okay. The last thing that I was going to mention on this game is my experience with it, because I've played this game 3 times now. So once again, not really a hot take, but I would say the first 2 times I played this, I was a little lukewarm on Dune War for Arrakis. First time, you know, diving into it. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to take in, and you're kind of just, you're trying things out, seeing how it works. Not always the best experience for a large game. Second game I played, so the first game I played was Harkonnen. Second game I played as the Atreides. I had a better time with this. I thought the Atreides were a little more interesting. They're a little more my style of play. The Harkonnens definitely didn't lean into my strengths or my interests with the game. But I still wasn't like fully sold in this game. I was like, this was interesting, but I don't know. Like I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I would say this game didn't shine for me until the third play. Now the third play, I felt like I had the rules pretty well locked down. I was able to do a pretty quick teach because I played it with a person that I played it with on my first play. So we both had a good idea of going into it. I was able to do a quick teach for a recap, just get us both up to speed. And I felt we both had a better grasp of the systems. I played as Atreides and the opponent played as the Harkonnens. And this play was phenomenal. Like this was one of my best board games that I played. I absolutely loved playing Dune War for Arrakis in this third playthrough. It felt tense. My decisions felt like they mattered. It felt like things were just, we were right on the edge of who was gonna win. I think I made a gambit to try to win, and it failed at the end. I was like, I had these cards in my hand that I was like, oh, this is gonna just blow this person's mind and what I'm gonna do with these. I got like my nuke cards and my worm maker cards, and it was just I was like, oh, I think I can pull this win off. And then he was going for one of my sieges that I was like, if you get that one, that was a 3, that's going to be your victory. I need you to not get this one. Then some of the dice rolls in combat kind of went against me, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It was so good. It was such a good game. It had the right amount of tension for me. It had the right amount of just decision making. We were both really engaged and trying to kind of plan out this war game on this map. So after my third play, yeah, I would say I am starting, well, I definitely really enjoyed Dune War for Arrakis. I want to play it again. I'm glad I didn't judge it just on my first and second play. If I would have done a hot take on my first play, I would have been like, you probably don't need this. But third play, I'm like, if you have any interest in war games, this might be the one. I will say I haven't tried the Lord of the Rings version, well, the original kind of what Dune War for Arrakis was built out to, which was the Lord of the Rings version. I do plan on playing that in the near future. Have been a little afraid because of the rules and some of the finickiness of it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Dune War for Arrakis, absolutely amazing. Well, absolutely amazing after my third play. So it took a lot of work to get into, but I think it's been worth it. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. Those are my hot takes. I hope I introduced you to maybe 1 or 2 new games. I think Desperate Oasis and Wizards of the Grimoire don't get enough attention. The other ones, I'm sure if you've been watching board game channels, you've probably heard of, and I agree with a lot of the other people that have talked about those, that these are really good games. Let me know your thoughts on these. Let me know if you have any questions about them, if you've played these and have some different experiences that you want to share. But as always, thank you for spending your time with me. Thank you for watching this video. And until next time.